Welshpool, Western Australia. 1985. A brand new tractor sits at the end of the assembly line, and its paint is wrong. For 36 years, these machines had worn their own colors. This one is John Deere green. The Chamberlain name is still bolted to the nose, but the skin underneath belongs to someone else now. The men on the floor keep working. They torque the bolts, they check the welds, they roll the finished machine out into the Perth sun. They have built tractors here since before most of them were born. They do not know that the decision to end all of this has already been made. Not in this building, not in this country. In an office on the other side of the world, someone has run the numbers, and the numbers have won. This is the story of a tractor built by a nation for its own hard land. It is the story of how that nation handed it to a giant, and it is the story of how the giant made it disappear. A machine for a harder country. To understand what was lost, you have to understand what Bob Chamberlain saw that nobody else did. In the 1930s, Bob Chamberlain was a tractor mechanic in Victoria. He spent his days fixing machines that had been designed for other places. British tractors, American tractors, built for small green fields and gentle rain. Then they were shipped to Australia and asked to work paddocks the size of small counties. They labored under a sun that punished steel and men alike. They were not built for this. Bob Chamberlain knew it because he was the one repairing them. So he built his own. In his workshop, he designed a prototype around a single idea, a tractor entirely suited to the enormous land holdings of Australian farmers, big, heavy, simple enough that a man could fix it himself, hundreds of miles from the nearest dealer. It was not elegant. It was built to survive. That prototype became the 40K, and it needed a home. The home came from an unlikely place. During the war, the government had built a munitions factory at Welshpool on the edge of Perth. Small Arms Ammunition Factory number 6. From 1942 to 1945, its workers packed 303 rounds for the rifles of a world war. When the war ended, the factory fell silent. In 1947, the government offered the empty building to the Chamberlain family, swords into plowshares, quite literally. On the 18th of May 1949, the first Chamberlain tractor rolled off a line that had once made bullets. The 40K weighed about 4 tons. It ran a 40-horsepower engine, and it was Australian, in a way no imported machine could ever be. The legend of Tail End Charlie. The tractor earned its reputation the hard way. In 1955, Chamberlain switched from kerosene to diesel, and they needed the whole country to know it. So they did something a little insane. They took one of their new diesel champions, modified it, and entered it in the Redux trial. A brutal motor race around the entire continent. They did not enter it to win. They entered it as a rescue vehicle. They called it Tail End Charlie. Its job was to follow the race and drag out anyone who broke down, and drag them out it did. The legend says that on one stage, Tail End Charlie hauled as many as 6 broken-down entrants at once. One Australian tractor towing the wreckage of everyone who could not keep up. You could not buy advertising like that. The message was simple. When everything else fails, the Chamberlain is the thing still running. By the mid-60s, this was not a fringe brand. In a good year, Australians bought about 13,000 tractors. 1 in every 4 of them was a Chamberlain, built in that single factory on the edge of Perth. In 1964, the company won a National Export Award. A tractor born in a bullet factory was now selling to the world. Through the 60s, the tractors got bigger and better. The 6G, the C6100, the biggest tractor on the Australian market. And in 1966, the machine that many still call the best Chamberlain ever built, the 9G, 62 horsepower. A gearbox that gave it 9 gears. It plowed, it seeded, it ran loaders, it towed field bins, Farmers loved it so much that some of them are still running 9Gs today, 60 years later. There is a 9G club. In the year 2000, they drove them across Australia just to prove they still could. This was not just a machine, it was a member of the family, and that is exactly the kind of thing that cannot survive a spreadsheet. The giant buys in. In 1970, John Deere came to Welshpool. Understand who John Deere was? A giant out of Moline, Illinois, a company that sold machines in more than 160 countries. Next to Chamberlain's single factory on the edge of Perth, Deere was an ocean, and in 1970, that ocean bought a 49% controlling stake in the little Australian company. At first, it looked like a gift. Chamberlain now had the backing of the biggest name in farm machinery on Earth. The Welshpool network began distributing John Deere's own tractors alongside its own. The company traded under a new name, Chamberlain John Deere. Two names side by side as equals, but they were not equals. One of them owned the other. Here is the part that matters, and the part that is not a villain twirling a mustache. From Deere's side, everything that happened next was rational, perfectly, coldly rational. Deere already built tractors, huge numbers of them, in enormous factories, far more cheaply than a small plant in Western Australia ever could. Why keep a separate Australian design alive, with its own engineering, its own tooling, its own costs? You could simply ship in the tractors you were already making. That question did not have a sentimental answer. It only had a financial one, and the financial answer was to stop. If you want to see more stories like this one, hit that subscribe button. What John Deere did to the Chamberlain name over the next 15 years is the quietest kind of erasure there is. The color of surrender. The erasure did not happen all at once. It happened one shade at a time. In 1975, Chamberlain released the sedan 80 series. It was, by every account, heavily influenced by John Deere. The Australian machine was starting to think like an American one. The engineering that Bob Chamberlain had built for his own hard country was quietly being smoothed away. Then came the paint. In 1985, the new 90 series Chamberlain tractors rolled off the Welshpool line wearing John Deere green, not Chamberlain colors, Deere colors. The name on the nose still said Chamberlain. Everything else said John Deere. It was the visual moment of the takeover, right there in the paint. A brand wearing another company's skin while still signing its own name. The men building those tractors could see it. You cannot paint a machine a different color and pretend nothing has changed. The color was the message. The Australian tractor was already gone. It just had not been told yet. And through all of this, the factory was booming. That is the cruel part. In the late 70s and early 80s, Welshpool was at its peak. Around 1,500 people worked there. Most were immigrants who had crossed the world to build a life around this factory. In 1982, Deere spent real money redeveloping the site. New furnaces, a new office complex. It looked like investment. It looked like a future. It was the golden age. And the golden age is always the last thing you see before the fall. In 1986, the line stopped. The official reason was a rural downturn. The farm economy of the 1980s was brutal, and demand for new tractors collapsed across the industry. That part is true. But it was not the whole truth. The whole truth was the calculation Deere had been able to make since 1970. It was cheaper to import than to build. The downturn did not create that math. It just gave it permission. When the market got hard, a global company had no reason to keep an Australian factory alive making an Australian tractor. It could fill those orders from its own lines overseas. So Welshpool stopped building tractors. In the space of 37 years, that single factory had produced 97,872 of them. 97,000 machines, from the first 40K to the last green-painted 90 series. And then, nothing. The name held on a little longer, like a shadow. But in the early 1990s, Deere planned to move its Australian headquarters to Brisbane. The word Chamberlain was quietly dropped from the company title. First the color, then the factory, then the name itself. Bob Chamberlain's tractor was gone in every way a thing can go. Walk through what happened to the place, and you feel the whole weight of it. The 1,500 jobs went as the plant wound down. The families who had built their lives around Welshpool had to build them around something else. In 1991, a company called Broadacre moved into the old factory to make castings. They ran it until 2006, and then they closed too. The site was carved up and sold off. Today, only a portion of the original workshop still stands. The building that made bullets, then made tractors, then made nothing. And Australia, the nation that once built a tractor tough enough to tow 6 machines across a desert, now imports the tractors it uses. The last mass tractor factory the country had went quiet in 1986. It never woke up. There is a strange coda to this. In October 2024, in the town of Carnama, they unveiled a sculpture, a Chamberlain 40K built 5 times life-size. It stands on the side of the road as one of Australia's big things. Nearly 40 years after the last one was built, a country decided it could not quite let the machine go. You do not build a monument to a spreadsheet. You build one to something you loved. The warning. A nation that stops building its own machines is trusting someone else to decide whether it needs them at all. The men in Moline were not cruel. They were not wrong on paper. Every number they had said the same thing, and the numbers won. But numbers do not remember a factory that once made bullets and then made plows. They do not remember a paddock the size of a county. They do not remember a tractor towing 6 dead machines through the dust. They only ask if it is cheaper to build something somewhere else. And the answer, eventually, is almost always yes. Bob Chamberlain built a machine for a country that needed one. A giant bought it, painted it, and let it disappear. And the last Chamberlain still runs today. It runs in the hands of farmers who never got the memo that their tractor was supposed to be gone. Subscribe so you won't miss the next story of the machines that built the modern world, and the companies that decided they were no longer worth building.